Good morning everybody and welcome back to the second episode in our Lego Legend of Zelda custom set showcase based off Tears of the Kingdom. 18 sets, all based off the brand new game, and today we're taking a look at the biggest one by far, something that I've been very excited to share with you guys. This is Z0075 with 2,376 pieces. Some of you guessed it already, but this is Lookout Landing. And not only is this one of the largest sets we've ever done here on the custom set showcase, not quite the biggest, but it's getting up there, but it is also our first sort of Master Builder series large scale, and I mean large scale playset that ticks a couple of the boxes, and we've got to talk about what this set is as we go through today. But let's look at some key information and some more details first. As mentioned, this is Z0075, with being named Lookout Landing, for ages 8 and up with 2,379 pieces, retailing for a grand price of £179.99, with 14 minifigures for us to take a look at today. And I've actually done a second variant of the box art here today in the 18 plus style, and more on why I can't decide on which style it should be a little later on. Reading up on our description for today with our playset style box, we have: explore the central hub of the Hyrule restoration effort and build the base of operations for your Lego Legend of Zelda adventure. Open up the fort to visit the shops of Lookout Landing or talk with the Sheikah researchers to help save the kingdom. Defend the fort from the Boss Bokoblin's forces or launch into the sky from the Skyview Tower using brand new pump action. Z0075 Lookout Landing can connect with Z0076 for expanded play and unlock even more mysteries inside this impressive fortification. Build Hyrule's forces by combining with minifigures and accessories from other Tears of the Kingdom playsets to turn Lookout Landing into a thriving community playset. Some hints there at some of the features we'll be seeing in today's video, as well as the fact that we'll be popping back to Lookout Landing throughout the rest of the custom sets to add additional things to it. Not that it needs it, it's a pretty big set already. And of course, as you will find, if we open up our box, we will see a total of 23 numbered bags and one huge and boring instruction manual, still in the white colours because at the end of the day this is a playset. And if we open up that instruction manual, we will see our building phases. Bag 1 starts the Technic frame that's going to hold this model together and gives us our Champions Leathers Link minifigure. Bag 2 expands that frame, giving a base for the West Gate. Bag 3 gives us 2 red bokoblins using the new Tears of the Kingdom horns and builds the East Gate section. Bag 4 starts the middle courtyard of the fort. Bag 5 gives us a blue bokoblin and continues to build the fountain, or like ceremonial area, that is seen in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And Bag 6 finishes this, as well as added some finishing touches to the Technic frame. Bag 7 starts building upwards with the research room and gives us our Joshua minifigure. Bag 8 continues these fortifications and also builds the base for Pura's house. Bag 9 gives us Carson as well as builds the East Gate. Bag 10 starts the foundations for the Skyview Tower. Bag 11 gives us a pen minifigure, builds the West Gate. Bag 12 builds the ground floor entrance for the Skyview Tower. Bag 13 gives us our Boss Bokoblin big figure, as well as adds some base detailing around Lookout Landing. And Bag 14 continues this, finishing the interior details for the research room, as well as various weapons and other items across the playset. Bag 15 gives us Taro and starts construction on the actual body of the Skyview Tower. And Bag 16 finishes the Skyview Tower with the hatch at the top. Bag 17 gives us Robbie, and this bag builds the landing area where lots of main meetings happen throughout the game. And Bag 18 brings us over to a side build where we start construction on Pura's house. Bag 19 finishes the ground floor, gives us our Pura minifigure, and gets us ready to build the roof of Pura's building, which is happening in Bag 20. Getting close to the end now, with Bag 21 builds the right hand side of the fortification all the way up to the front gate, gives us our Mubs minifigure and her shop. Bag 22 gives us Wordsworth and builds the front left section. And Bag 23 finishes off with Scorpus as well as the front gate fortification to join the entire building up together. And that finishes off the build phase of Lookout Landing. We've got plenty of details to take a look at through, and we're going to have a look at the minifigures as we go through the build today. And here is what Lookout Landing looks when it's a completely sealed fortification from the outside. Now don't worry, as this is a playset, the front does open up, allowing easy access to all of the interiors, as we will see. But before we do that, let's do a little 360 spin. Looking down from the top, it sort of gives you a breakdown. We have the fountain in the center, as I will continue to call it, even though it's not a fountain. We have the research area at the back, Pyrrha's house, the Skyview Tower, as well as 3 gates, the west, east and south gates, as well as various details around the inner courtyard. From the back you can see that there is also a door facing north towards the castle, as well as this is what the house looks like from the back. And while it is intended to be viewed from 360 degrees, this model definitely features less detail on the back side, as is fitting of a playset of its stature. Here it is from the remaining side that we haven't seen. You can see the west gate as well as a suspicious hole in the bottom of the Skyview Tower. More on that later. Starting at the front, we have an entrance gate at the south. This is the main gate into Lookout Landing and features, well, more crenellations because of that. We have 4 flags, 2 of which feature stickers of the Hyrulean crest and feature a more elaborate design featuring all the colours seen on that flag in-game. You've also got the red curtainy flags that are coming through the main entranceway, and no drawbridges are featured here in this set, just one too many features to add. You've also got plenty of space to place soldiers and guards around the fortification, as all the walls have studs around the top. You have this main entrance between the middle, which of course in a battle would be used to drop oil or something if this was a real medieval fort, and then of course 2 turrets with crenellations along the top, remembering that this is a wooden fort. As we enter though, we're going to take a look at our first minifigure for today, with his Link in his Champion's Leathers. This is using the same hairpiece that we've been using since Wave 1 for our Breath of the Wild Link, using the new face print that has been given to him for the Tears of the Kingdom face. One side is a stern expression and the other one is a little bit more unnerved, fitting of someone that's about to be launched out of Skyview Tower. The Champion's Leathers are present here, as well as the Hylian hood in a cloth cape piece with some dual molded legs, and he has a normal sword representing just a soldier's broadsword. And here of course is the reference imagery. You can see here that I chose to not include the Zonai arm on every figure so that you can have the champion's tunic as it is designed in a sense in the tunnels. This is a deliberate choice and not just a reuse from a previous figure. I wanted him to feel more like a complete outfit rather than include the Zonai arm on every single figure, as you'll see with some of the other outfits throughout this wave. But back to the main build, of course as I mentioned, this model can open up to access all of the play features on the inside. So in order to do that, the 2 front sections swing open. Here it is in progress. You have to start by swinging the left segment over, and that comes all the way out, and then the right hand segment can open up too. Now this is all made possible due to this hinge piece, which allows 2 points of articulation. One to swing the front over, but then the second allows you to sort of pose the front sections back a lot further, as seen here. This means that the entirety of Lookout Landing can be spread out to be one thin line, and while this doesn't look very good, it might be useful for play, and of course extra options are always welcome. Similarly, you could also have it just like this, where it's open at a right angle, allowing it to feel more like a fortification while you're playing inside. We're going to work through this now from left to right, taking a look at all the details and things to be seen, starting with this front gate section, which as you can see from the back, you can see has plenty of space to store figures to guard the gate on the 2 top turrets, as well as along the balustrade in the middle. There's plenty of space to pass figures and potentially even figures on horses through the front gate, and also you could fight off invading forces here. There's a couple of extra studs around, maybe for weapon storage as well, but beyond that you also, as I said, have plenty of space to store your figures. You'll notice that the majority of this build is made using palisade bricks, the same ones they used for the western fortifications back in the 80s. I'm still only using pieces available on the current market though, so none of those original pieces that were very large and unwieldy are present in this model. You'll also notice that to represent the shaved columns of the wooden poles in a sense that you'll see throughout this fort, as it's a load of poles stacked on its end, you'll see lots of the pyramid piece in tan to represent the shaved spiked tops of the wooden logs. As also mentioned, there's this opening gap here where you can put more figures, and as you can see on the banisters, there's plenty of space to pass figures through underneath. Of course, guarding our fortification is our one knight for this set. Don't worry, there will be more appearing in other sets. This is Scorpus. He guards the emergency shelter in the middle of Lookout Landing, and he is our resident guard for today. As I said, he's a named character. He stands in the middle, and he's sort of in charge of Lookout Landing, or at least that's what he says in his dialogue. You can see he's wearing a modified version of the soldier's gear, where he has his tabard and some metal plating, but for the majority he's just in civilian clothes. He has a moustache and his hair is up in a bun, and he carries a spear. Back to the model, of course, you can see that there is, mentioned, lots of place all the way around these modules for guards to stand on, and here he is up the top guarding over the fortification, and from the other side it does look menacing. You can imagine having 4 or 5 of the soldiers all in different amounts of armour, some with the soldier's helm from previous Breath of the Wild sets, and some that we'll be seeing in future sets, all guarding along these walls would definitely add some playability for some children. Not to mention, you would have the windows that are present across the fortification to help break up the endless palisade bricks. This front wall is definitely more boring, but that is obviously because it swings out of the way. As I mentioned, 2 windows which could be used to fire bows and arrows through. There's definitely a lot of weapons in this set, but also just help to break up the monotony. Down below we have some green area. Majority of Lookout Landing is grass. You'll see lots of these 2x4 modules with yellow flowers and this bigger plant stem on it. These are not only to help join plates together but add a little bit of foliage to the model. You can also see in the back that there was some fish in a crate, just some of the supplies around Lookout Landing. But we also have this feature which crashes into the front left of Lookout Landing during the early portions of the game. This is one of the Zonai monuments that starts the Ancient Hyrule translation quest, where you have to go to the Star Islands and find the various text to translate with our next character, who is Wordsworth. The translation expert spends most of his time in Kakariko Village, however I chose to include him here to have some Zonai survey team representation. His iconic features make him stand out a little bit, such as the beret and of course the bright pink hair which you can see on the side of his face here. As well as sporting that though, we have the Zonai survey team outfit with a sand blue wear jacket underneath the sort of waistcoat that he's wearing, and then brown accents for his gloves, belts and extra padding on his shoulders and feet. Some simple grey legs, but has a lot of printing across this figure. Also around there we could see various examples of leaves from the Zonai Sky Islands, as well as a frog. Over here, hidden by the walls when it is closed, once opened you can see that there are some clips on this little hidden section of wall, and this is to take various weapons and equipment from different characters and to actually put them and hang them up so that they're not floating around your playset. You have 4 clips here, and these can hold a variety of different weapons such as swords or bows and other things, and in front of them you'll actually see a barrel holding some more strange equipment such as a rake and a oar paddle. That is because a lot of these soldiers of Hyrule hold different weapons that maybe aren't as much up to scratch as some of the official ones. There are plenty of clips throughout the sets to hold things, and whilst things like spears might not fit in this gap, there are plenty of other places to put them. You'll actually see some examples of some weapons on this clips on the other side. Up atop, the balustrades, or should I say like fortifications, go up and a bit over the entrance. This is just to, well, make the entrances feel more accurate to the game, and you can see that the pathway still continues all the way around, so soldiers can walk all the way around the top, as well as of course making room for the entrance underneath, which from this angle you can see all the way through from the west to the east gate. They are identical. A couple more windows, and you can see that around the outside the rockwork is hiding the Technic frame that supports all the underneaths here. In one of the alcoves here you have the training dummies. These are seen as one NPC who is always targeting them and practicing with them. There are 3 in game, but we can only fit 1 in here, just made out of a couple of different scarecrow elements with a grey target for him to practice on, sat in the middle. A nice use of space that could invite some imaginative play for any of the owners of this set. On the floor, of course, leading around the centre, we have lots of pathways. These are made using grey tiles and serve a dual purpose. Not only do they help link the buildings together, break up the colour and, well, are accurate to the game, they also help join the numerous green plates that make up the grass of Lookout Landing together. And you can see that they lead to and from all the main features of the model, such as the west gate to the main staircases, as well as to the main central fountain as well. Speaking of, there are 2 staircases in this back left corner of Lookout Landing that lead to 2 important locations, one of which is the Skyview Tower. The mesh in where the air pump would be situated underneath has been recreated using fence elements, all propped up here at a diagonal angle, and then the other staircase is slightly steeper and just sort of circumvents this and leads up to the main sort of lookout platform of Lookout Landing. But who do we find here when you meet in Lookout Landing for the first time? This is of course Pen. He is situated by the Skyview Tower, and that's where you find out about the Lucky Clover Gazette. Given that I won't be tackling the stables or the Lucky Clover in this series, I thought this was the perfect time to include, well, not only another Rito, but also an important character from the game. Here you can see that Pen is using a new custom head mold designed perfectly for him, but he is also using the chicken arms in white for his wings. While this piece cannot be printed to represent the black feathers at the end, it more than enough does the job to represent that he is indeed a bird. While other Rito in the series have included normal arms such as Rivali and Cass, that's because I wanted them to hold things. Here I think Pen benefits more from the unique shape, but feel free to disagree. Once you've talked with Pen, of course, you can proceed inside the Skyview Tower to be launched into the sky. We're using the double door piece here in brown to just sort of add an extra feature, but also to block off the sliding doors from, well, the main thing. And this is also important for the play feature that we'll find out about in just a minute. Here you can of course see that once open, Link can be placed inside, and then 3, 2, 1, we can shoot Link out of the top into the sky. But let's just go back a second. We can't go through this whole launch sequence without talking about the tower. The majority of the tower in the game is a lattice-based structure, so here we're using the snot technique to get fences on the side to create the main tower structure. Then the tower shrinks in size before a wooden boarded, admittedly lopsidedly, Hudson construction is slacking, to represent the top section as seen here. The 4 sort of lights on the corner are used using these bar elements here. They're sort of bionicle eyes, I believe, and then the hatch just opens up at the top. This play feature will not work when the hatch is closed, so you do have to manually open the hatch before the play feature can begin. But then of course you can launch Link into the sky. Ignore the outfit change, the archaic set does not come in this set. As you can see, the tower is completely hollow, and that is to facilitate this feature I keep talking about. And at the bottom you will see a suspicious looking opening, and that is because this set heralds the return of the air pump technology first introduced in Life on Mars and then seen again in Mars Mission, where air was pumped into a model in order to, well, send air through a tube and then push minifigures and other builds around. This tube then feeds into the bottom of the lookout landing sort of tower, allowing the plate that is inside and that Link sits on to be elevated right to the top, sending the minifigure shooting out the top. A fantastic introduction to, well, an amazing part of the game, right? Like, why wouldn't you want this to be recreated? It's absolutely perfect. So the bringing back of 2 new molds, the tube and then the actual air pump, definitely contribute to this set's price and are only really viable because this set is so massive. The color scheme I would choose for the air pump would be a black top with a dark turquoise base to represent the Zonai technology, and then the tube would also be in a blue, either to represent Sheikah or Zonai air energy. As mentioned though, the tower has a couple of other details around, such as all the Sheikah flags and lanterns that decorate various heights of the tower. You can also get a better look at the snot technique that makes up the majority of the height here, perfectly stable, and adds a nice bit of texture to the model. Mentioning that other staircase though, you can see it continues up and then turns right to get to the main platform up top, but of course you have to be able to access the stuff underneath as well. You can see that once again, the fortifications around the sort of elevated portions of the fort do continue completely around the model, as well as more crenellations here for soldiers to hide behind. Down in the crevice we have a rat, just adding some more wildlife and a little bit of fun to the model. And as mentioned, the main platform here can be removed in order to access the area below. But of course, who lives in the area below? We have our next minifigure, and that is Joshua, the child researcher focusing in on the depths, and it's her lab that we'll be taking a look at. You can see here that she's using mid-legs just like Robbie will in order to be shorter. She has some normal molded arms with some nice printing on to represent her slightly shorter sleeves, as well as a new face print and a brand new hair mold to represent her triple plaits, as well as her elf ears coming over the side. You can see that she's got her glasses as well as a nice cheery smile for her happy demeanour, as well as the Sheikah robe printing all over her body. Next up, of course, Robbie also helps here for a large portion of the game, and the tech labs will not be featured across the 18 set, so it makes sense to include him here. He is actually almost a one-for-one reuse from a Wave 2 figure that appeared, well, that was Robbie, from his Breath of the Wild appearance in the Sheikah accessory pack. However, of course, here he has some new accessories for Tears of the Kingdom. He's still using the widowed peak and slick back hair, with a face print to represent his goggles and a nervous experiment still face as if something has blown up. You can also see that he is wearing the same outfit as Breath of the Wild, but also this time features a Zonai charge and the Pura pad in his hands, changed out from an ancient core and a Sheikah slate from the first set. And they of course both live underneath this platform and work here with lots of different details to take a look at. As mentioned though, this platform can be removed, which is what we're going to see now, and has a printed element, which is the Hyrule Royal Crest on an 8x16 tile that makes up the main structural integrity for this platform. This is of course where you consult with Pura and then of course the sages throughout the game. There is of course an entrance to Pura's house here, as well as a staircase up to the next level, but now it's finally to see that you can lift off this whole section here to reveal the interior, which has a lot of my favorite details in the model. Starting again left to right, of course, we have this treasure chest here, which is empty, but you could fill it with whatever you like. On top is a 2x3 sticker of the regional phenomena prints. There are 4 of these scattered across the sets, and they're sort of the breakdowns that Pura is using to discover what's going wrong. This is the Zora one and features a sketch of Zora's domain, as well as some Hyrulean text. It's sort of showing you that there is a problem in Zora's domain, and all 4 of these are represented in stickers throughout the model. Slightly further around, you've got a workbench full of many drawers, as well as 3 troughs where you can see a unlit bright bloom seed represented by the Baraki eye in a leaf, a giant bright bloom seed also unlit because it's in lime green. The lit ones will appear in white, and then also a cube of Zonite, which is built out of 3 stacked plates with a tile on the top, one of which being in dark turquoise and the other 2 being black. This is a build we'll see reoccur across many sets across the wave. Slightly further around, once again, we have another sticker on a 4x4 tile. This is of course the mural which leads us down into the depths, and we'll be exploring where this leads us later on in the showcase. But here it is as a nice sticker, obviously representing the detail from the game. Examining Zonai though is the job of our next minifigure, who is Taro. Again, Kakariko will not be featured in this set, so it made sense to include him here, and he does actually appear in Lookout Landing during a portion of the game. He is here with a recolor of the magnifying glass into dark turquoise and a reprint of the Mateo hair from the New Dreams line. While this doesn't include his hat and goggles, obviously wherever possible we need to use existing hair pieces to cut down on the mold budget, and to be honest, this one does the job just fine. I've really grown on it, and I like the fact that Mateo's hair has already been shown to include a little bit of different coloured printing in the piece, with dark green to represent the dream essence in his face, I think it is. But in here we're using that same printing technology to get the white into Taro's hair, as would be expected. Here's a face print with his goatee, as well as an open shirt, vest, and then of course his Zonai survey equipment tied around his waist with his plain arms as well. The new skin colour really did lend itself to Taro here as well, another fantastic figure to join the lineup. Of course, other details are included inside this area though. We have the Pose statue, one of my favourite builds from within the set, with a print on the pentagonal tile here of the 4-eyed face of the mysterious owner that wants some Pose. I wonder if we'll be seeing Pose in any future sets in this showcase. We also have that set of doors which opens out onto a little jetty which crosses the moat and then approaches to Hyrule Castle from behind. Furthermore, back inside we have Robbie's Purapad research station with another 4x4 tile that features the sort of blueprint sketches for the Purapad, where he is found working, as well as a sack preparing for his return journey to Hateno. Another set of doors here leads into an area we don't actually see in game, but I've taken some creative liberties with for the fun of it. Opening up those doors, you'll see there's a full interior within, and this is actually a jail cell. Including monsters in this set made perfect sense to make this a centre of law and order for Hyrule. So you can either jail monsters or delinquent members of the fortification. We have a fully sort of fledged jail cell. If I take away the wall, with a door, 2 keys, and then on the desk you will find a quill and also another sticker which represents the Zelda and Link missing poster, which can be seen throughout Lookout Landing on some of the Lucky Gazette papers, as well as in the emergency shelter. And that would just be another cool detail to include. Perhaps they're interrogating whoever's in the jail cell about their disappearance. That brings us over to the back right corner though, and it's time to look at the multi-layered structure which is Pura's house with the telescope on top. It was an interesting challenge recreating the Sheikah style roofing which is present here, but of course we have to first take a look at the minifigure that will inhabit this space, being Pura. She is here using the chopstick piece from Friends to represent her stick thing that she holds. She's using the beehive piece because once again, can't do new molds for everybody. She's missing her goggles and the red strand of hair, but she does have her glasses, a slightly concerned face print because of the upheaval that's happened. I like to imagine that this is the scene, you know what I mean if you know what I mean, where she's looking through her telescope at something rather shocking. She features her Sheikah robes, which have been a little bit simplified, however detailing on her legs is still nice and strong. She also has her brown shoes on as well. Another figure for our lineup. But as I mentioned, back to the building, the multiple layers of this can be removed, such as the entire thing from the base, allowing access to the jail room. But there's also the staircase that goes around from the back of the joint area, all the way around towards the top where there's a ladder leading you up to the main telescope area. You can see that the Sheikah roof is built in 2 main sections, and that is actually because the main interior of this building has to be accessible somehow. We'll take a look at that in a minute. But looking at the telescope, you can see it's built out of a load of different golden cone elements of Lego, followed by a dish at the end with a speckled translucent dish piece at the end to represent the lens. At the other end, of course, there are some more details, but first here is just a quick render of what it might look like. Again, you know the scene I mean if you know the scene I mean, and here you can see her plenty of space stood next to her telescope to look through it. From the back, you can see we're using a Ninjago dragon horn, as well as a minifigure superhero poser piece, and then a crystal element to represent the viewing area for the telescope. This could of course be viewed by minifigures or by a human too. But what might you see outside of the fortification? Nothing except exploring monsters that are trying to get inside. Here we have the new big fig for the set, the blue boss bokoblin, and another new mold to add to the showcase. The main body piece is the new mold in question, however the arms and fists are just recolors of the existing cave troll arms into dark or earth blue, with some orange and dark orange printing to represent the boss bokoblin markings. The new mold is a one-piece mold that features the legs, tummy and head, as well as back, which features 4 studs on the top of the boss bokoblin, and this could easily be recolored into the different models. While he doesn't feature his tongue sticking out, you can see he has a roaring face. His arms can be articulated up and down to swing various weapons around, and he has a stud hole in the top of his head to exchange the different horns for the different variants. Here you can see this is built by a bar piece in dark red or brown with a axe element in grey to represent the blue boss bokoblin horn. However, a boss bokoblin would not be complete without his troops, and that is where our bokoblins come in. First up, we have red bokoblin. You get 2 of them in the set, and they are using the updated design, which is retconned into the only design I've ever done, using mid-legs with some toe printing and for their loincloth, as well as some simple printing on the torso, some dual molded arms with the bandage wraps around them, and then the new head mold, which has a stud hole attachment at the top for the new and improved Tears of the Kingdom horn pack. You may remember I introduced this with the Talus build a while back, but this is a way similar to how Ninjago or Marvel include multiple effect pieces or weapon pieces in one bag to reduce mold costs. Think of the swords from Rivendell. I'm including a variety of different horn molds in one pack so that we can express the unique forms for weapon attachments, but also for the monster horns across the different waves. This also means that the bokoblin heads can be used for both Breath of the Wild and all the different Tears of the Kingdom variants, saving on molds in the long run, because otherwise you would need upwards on 5 different molds just on bokoblin heads. Included in this pack is not only the red bokoblin horn, but the blue bokoblin horn, the black bokoblin horn, the silver bokoblin horn, the Breath of the Wild Lizalfos horn, the red Tears of the Kingdom Moblin horn, and the black Tears of the Kingdom Moblin horn. All other horns have brick-built solutions or other solutions that we will see as we explore more Tears of the Kingdom figures. As mentioned though, you get 2 red bokoblins in the set. Really love this redesign, and I'm really pleased with how the horn pack turned out again. But also, as mentioned, we get 1 blue bokoblin. Most bokoblin packs with a boss bokoblin have at least 1 slightly higher level troop, and as we're early in our game so far, starting our lookout landing, you'll find that there are only red and blue variants for now. Once again, dual molded arms between blue and then the bandage wraps, the same loincloth and toe printing as well as the torso printing. The head this time appears in blue and features the blue horn, which is the 2-pronged fork that appears also in the horn pack here. So that's why the horn pack can be justified, because it helps 2 figures in this set. I should say 3 figures, because you get 2 red bokoblin horns in this pack. Moving back to the main build though, here is Pura's building from a slightly different angle, and we're now going to take a look inside the main floor by lifting off this section of the roof as seen here, which allows us access, if so very limited at least to start with, to the interior. You may be able to get a glimpse of what's to come, but of course you can swing the hinged roofs out of the way. Here's a roof removed in order for you to see a little bit better, to see that inside we have a bed for Pura, as well as 2 leaves on the wall to sort of represent that she's doing some experiments or some horticulture, as well as a second of our regional phenomena posters, this one being the Gerudo Town one, again a sticker on a 2x3 tile. From the outside, of course, there is a door that opens to the inside, there is a lantern outside as seen in game, and there are some trans yellow windows as well featured around the building as if the lights are on inside. On the other wall, the one we removed, you can see the last 2 of the regional phenomena posters, the one for Goron City and the one for Rito Village, all uniquely designed stickers on 2x3 tiles. Back outside and continuing round to the right side of Lookout Landing, we have the well that features here. This is of course where you can turn in the Where Are the Wells quest throughout the game. We also have some seating areas with some bottles, as well as a couple of workbenches that we'll take a look at in a minute. The well though is sheltered by a wooden roof and is made up of some curved elements. However, we've got a mystery to solve because there's a hole in the floor. I wonder why I might have left a hole in Lookout Landing to go down below. I wonder if maybe that has something to do with our next custom set. There's also another entrance that I should point out. I wonder where this trapdoor leads, or what the purpose of this trapdoor is. Curious, you'll have to tune back in next Friday to find out more about these mysteries that we're uncovering in Lookout Landing. As mentioned though, there were seating areas over to the right, a bucket, some bottles, and then over in the far back corner, another toolbox mainly for a builder, and then you've also got a butcher's knife and a pot to prepare those fish that we saw ages ago. The right gate is a mirror of the left gate. The path above raises up over it in order to, well, clear the gate. And of course, a main form in the construction of Lookout Landing was Hudson Construction, whose representative in Lookout Landing is of course Carson, our next minifigure. He is here using the fin hair from Star Wars, as it is commonly known, as well as a nice freckly face print. The red robes he wears in this one are open in the middle with the sort of wraps around his middle. He has a belt on for his tools, he's carrying a hammer, and has some nice grey legs with a little bit of printing, as well as some plain flesh-toned arms. He also has his necklace around the middle. Nice simple figure, great addition. Looking forward to seeing more construction members in the future. As mentioned though, a long time ago, on the left hand side we had some empty hooks for more weapons. However, on the right these hooks have been filled with a bow and arrow and then a staff, short staff or spear. I like to think that these are weapons that have been sort of made together after the upheaval and they all gloomed. Lots of NPCs talk about fusing different parts together manually by like hammering them together, or maybe Link fused these up for the fort to survive on. We've got to draw our attention to the central feature now though, and that is of course what was the ceremonial grounds. However, now it's just sort of, well, the entrance to the emergency shelter and a little bit more. Around the edge you'll again see more of these flowers holding things together, adding a little bit of detail, as well as a couple of lanterns. These are pretty common around Lookout Landing. The actual main fountain itself is built fairly accurately to in-game. You have a central round pillar in the middle, steps going up on all four sides, as well as various decayed versions of the pillars at different heights using cheese slopes and other platforms to sort of represent the different levels of decay from the calamity. The pools of water are also present in the four corners and made use of some nice angle techniques and some snot positioning in order to create a fairly accurate shape. A large proportion of parts in the model are sunk into this central feature. There is a feature though hidden here, and we're going to take a look at that now. This central area can be opened in order to reveal the emergency shelter. You start by pulling out this section of stairs, which creates a hole in the ground for the central piece to fall through, which of course leaves an opening for minifigures to drop down into the emergency shelter. But the emergency shelter is not included in this set. We have some more mysteries to unravel. I wonder what could be happening to our largest custom set next week in order to facilitate all these holes in the ground. Moving over though to our last segment, this is of course the right hand side. We have a large tree built here using dark or brown pieces, using the tube elements from the Mickey and Minnie set in order to create a nice bendy tree, some roots in the ground and some more foliage. You can see that unfortunately when pulling this element out, some of the water from below the ceremonial grounds is unfortunately visible, but that is just the nature of opening up a playset. It doesn't really matter too much. We also though have the store on this section, the general store, and that is of course operated by Mubs of Lurelin Village, who had a store in Breath of the Wild and now has a store here in Lookout Landing. She is of course accurate to her design from the game, using one of the new skin tones, the sort of bob cut hairpiece that's been in many city sets, simple face print, a simple torso print, some dual molded arms and some dual molded legs with some olive green printing. She makes up one of our last figures in this set, and she can of course tend to her stall, which features apples, a golden apple, and then some Hylian rice or tabantha wheat, whatever you want to make it out to be. So there's a nice lime yellow canopy, and of course she sells other items in game. We will add those to her store as we go through more custom sets. This area over here is sort of more empty next to the tree, and that is because it's where the front gate sits when the model is closed. Therefore it's tiled over so that the front gate can smoothly slide over to this section and complete the fort. That actually completes looking at all the different elements of the fort, but let's just show you a couple more of the overviews. The front two sections are actually built at a 45-degree angle on wedge plates, which explains some of the weird angles and while most things are tiled off. It also gives you an idea of how the entranceway sort of sits into the main model when you see it combined like this. The joins are actually rather seamless, and you can't actually see where the left and right front segments do meet. However, of course, it is there, it is important. But you also get a nice aerial view from the back here, showing you not only the Wordsworth Zonai translation pillar, but also Mubs' store. You can see again those clearly the frog, just a tireless frog from the game, but also the sort of Zonai petals from the flowers from the Skylands that have dropped down around the sticker that represents the Zonai text. From the front though, you can again see the backside, which features the well, the Skyview Tower and Joshua's research lab, once again all centered around these ceremonial grounds. And looking through those front gates, you can see all the way through to the back, as well as of course the ceremonial grounds. And here's another one from the left. This is our last one to look at from today. You can see a couple more details, but it's just good to get a scale for this whole model. It's a really large thing. And then lastly, for our renders today, we have a new one of the telescope looking off into the distance at Hyrule Castle. But here is all the figures we looked at today. We've got a couple more things to talk about first. Of course, we have our enemy fortifications such as the boss Bokoblin, the 2 red Bokoblins and blue Bokoblin, making up a nice invasive force. We have our 2 Zonai researchers, 3 Sheikah researchers, 3 civilians, Pen, who doesn't really fit into any category, and then our Link variant for this set. Here are our Sheikah lot together, just nice to see them all as one, the whole research team for this game. And here is our enemies in their troop lineup, with the Bokoblins like massing around the blue Bokoblin as if he's blowing his horn. Really love that big figure. I was really excited to draw him for this wave. This set does not feature, however, a sacred stone or one of the other collectible markets. However, that does not mean that other parts of the sets do not link into this, and we will be returning to Lookout Landing throughout the wave, as I mentioned. Firstly, Z005 and Z0076 will connect together, and we will see that next week as we look at Z0076. And I'll leave it up to you how those two are going to work together, but it's very, very exciting. We talked about it today. But beyond that, we're also going to be adding figures, outfits, and also accessories. Bit of a strange one to Lookout Landing as we visit sets across the other 16 remaining sets that we're going to look at. And it'll be a little bit before we see some of those start to pop up. But I assure you, Lookout Landing will be a much fuller place even by the time we're done, as if it wasn't full already. But that actually brings us to a close looking at Lookout Landing. There's one last topic though I want to talk about. Here you can see the 2 boxes lined up as if they were both using the sort of playset style box here, and then also with the 18+ style. We have to talk about this set because, controversially, this Lookout Landing set is potentially the most unrealistic custom set I've ever produced on the channel. And that is purely a sort of result of ideas outweighing reality. And while this is a set that I could see them making, I personally think we would see it as this, an 18+ Master Builder set. Because most LEGO sets that reach into the 1,000 parts or 2,000 parts are going to be targeted towards adults these days, and that is because it's too expensive for kids, but it's also too sort of complex or too display focused. However, this is very much a playset designed around minifigures and designed around a central gimmick which we will discover next week I should say. However, this set wouldn't have been possible at a small scale due to all the things that needed to be fitted in to make it realistic, but also to work with that central gimmick. So the gimmick forced me to go bigger, which forced the piece count to balloon, and if I wanted to stay accurate and target it towards adults, then of course the piece count had to get even bigger. But I still wanted to include the figures because Lookout Landing without the figures and the functions isn't really good a set either. So where does this land? It's a set that realistically doesn't work this way, because for my gimmick to even work, this has to be affordable, and this set is unfortunately not affordable. Or at least is what I would have said until about 3 years ago when LEGO Monkey Kid arrived. An in-house LEGO IP, we're known for its large base sets such as the Temple of the Sea, which is basically identical to what Lookout Landing is. It's a large-scale playset focused on display and play, but has lots of figures, lots of highly detailed molds, and comes in at a whopping £180, just like Lookout Landing. So, this set is both possible and impossible. It matches a Star Wars Master Builder series set, however, as the gimmick you'll see next week, sort of demands it to be attainable for children, because both the sets involved are expensive. So I'm stuck in a paradox, and I'm forced to brand Lookout Landing as an 18+ set. Not to mention the 18+ box art looks really cool. I'm stuck. I didn't really want to make a set like this that's so unrealistic in that regard. However, it was important to bring up, important to talk about, and I hope you appreciate seeing it anyway, because I could have very well just cancelled it. But Octane finished a D2C set and didn't cancel it like Clocktown or any of the others. Woo! But that is, as mentioned, is going to do it for today. Let me know what you thought about Lookout Landing, and I hope you're looking forward to seeing how well Lookout Landing continues. It's just Lookout Landing Part 2, really, with Z0076, codename Shelter. Once again, no stones or banners next week, but it is still very exciting. Lots to take a look at. The most interesting gimmick I've ever done in a custom set showcase to make the ultimate Lookout Landing playset, and we're not even done yet. There are still 16 more custom sets to go across the next however many weeks, so consider subscribing and drop back next Friday for part 2 of this already way too long video. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.